Hello, agents, and welcome back to Module 4, Live and Let Die. Let me pull up my slides and we'll jump right in. Here we go. Training in the Art of Connection, Module 4, Lesson 2. In this lesson, we're going to go over my 5-step framework for breaking negative patterns of interaction. We're going to see how our wounds keep us trapped in negative patterns and learn how to share about our wounds with our partner in order to heal them together. This is Module 4, Live and Let Die. Our mission agenda for this week is breaking negative patterns of interaction so that we can create our own unique and beautiful dance together. We talked about the beauty of conflict. Right now, we're going over overcoming negative patterns of interaction, and we're going to end with choreographing a new dance. Those disclaimers again are just a warning. This process is not easy or comfortable. It will require you to get honest and vulnerable with your emotions and your partner. But you will get out of this week what you put into it, and it will be worth it. Please remember our motto, which is that knowledge is cute, but action is drop dead sexy. This week will require action on your part, but I guarantee if you jump in with both feet and do the work, the rewards will be immeasurable. Change starts with seeing the pattern and learning to focus on the game rather than the ball. Now, anyone who is a fan of any sports knows that every good player has a coach because the player's job is to focus on the ball. The coach, however, can see the bigger playing field and start to see the patterns and can instruct those players how to see the patterns. So the way we're going to start to change and shift in our marriage is to take a step back and see those patterns for what they are. And rather than focus on the ball, which would be the initial conflict, to learn how to see the bigger picture. This is my 5-step framework for breaking negative patterns of interaction. Now, there's a lot of ground to cover here, but this is a very valuable framework. What you can do is print out the worksheet linked right under this video and follow along. You don't have to fill it out while you're watching, but pay attention to how I talk about each of the 5 steps and then work on the worksheet on your own. If your spouse is going through this program with you, I suggest printing out 2 copies and working on them separately before you try to talk about these things together. So here is that framework. Number 1, identify what moves you make that trigger your partner. Then notice how that contributes to your partner's moves. Number 3, you're going to name your dance. Number 4, tune into those vulnerable emotions such as sadness, shame, or fear underneath the anger, and identify the deeper emotional needs that you and your partner have. And number 5, then once you have connected, you can work through the details of the argument and create a plan for facing your challenges and conflicts together as a team. Don't worry, I'm going to give you lots of instruction on how to do this. Number 1, identify what moves you make that trigger your partner. Now that you can identify those negative patterns of interaction, which are attack, 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 withdraw, or withdraw, withdraw, and how they present themselves in your marriage, it's time to actively fight against these patterns in order to break the cycle. What moves do you make that pull your partner into the dance? Do you raise your voice? Do you criticize or blame? Do you tune your partner out when they're trying to engage with you or roll your eyes? I want you to brainstorm this by yourself, and then you can ask your partner for help. So if the answer to these questions don't come immediately, I want you to put yourself in the last argument or disagreement you had with your partner. Take yourself back there and try to figure out which pattern is your go-to. Are you guys attackers? Is there one of you that attacks and one of you that withdraws, or do you both withdraw? How did the argument start? What seems to have escalated it? What are your go-to thoughts or behaviors, and how does your partner respond to them? This is what I want you to brainstorm on that worksheet. Once you've done that, I want you to notice how what you're doing contributes to your partner's moves. How are you effectively drawing them in to your pattern? So what causes them to attack, go on the defensive, or withdraw from you? How does this create the cycle that you both get caught up in every time you tend to disagree? And what could you do differently to change the outcome of your particular dance? Now, next week, we're going to talk about losing strategies and how to navigate solvable and perpetual problems. But for now, I just want you to focus on how you draw your partner in and keep them there, because it's usually these conditioned responses that we've always known that tend to poke your partner's wounds or trigger them in a way that bring them into this dance that you're so used to doing together. So the third step in this framework is to name the dance that you're already doing and can serve as an inside joke and a reminder of your special dance, right? Dances are as unique as people themselves. So when you name your dance, you can step outside of it and stand together as a team and fight the dance as the enemy, not each other. Remember, it's when we make the pattern the villain and not each other that we start to make some progress to break out of it. Now, my husband and I use a line from a country song to name our dysfunctional dance so that we can actually look at it and appreciate it now. I'm from Texas, and this song, My Little Texas Tornado Blowing Me Away Again, swore it wouldn't happen again, but I looked at you and then. That song is the inspiration behind our dance, which we call the Texas Tornado. When one or both of us feel ourselves falling into our old patterns and conditioned ways of interacting with each other, we can simply say, "Here comes the tornado," and it jostles us enough to be able to remember this 5-step process and how to break out of our destructive pattern. So step 4 is to tune into your vulnerable emotions. Your emotional needs may be to feel connected, loved, appreciated, valued, respected, or desired. If you can, articulate what this means and what it looks like to feel these things. How can you help your partner with the needs they're experiencing? So a lot of times our fights aren't even about who does the dishes or where you're going on vacation. Typically, those deeper arguments stem from the deeper needs. So if you can tune into those attachment needs and explain them to your partner, it's super helpful to be able to break out of that negative pattern. So with empathy and compassion, give each other comfort and reassurance that you matter to each other and you want to meet each other's needs. Here's a pro tip. Ask your partner, "Help me understand what I did to contribute to you feeling that way." Now, I get really vulnerable in this lesson because I'm asking you to do it. So this is something that happened after my husband and I had been married for about 7 years, and I was pregnant with my third baby. I remember I was huge and uncomfortable, and we were constantly arguing. And I remember feeling very out of control in my life just in general because I had all of these children and all of these responsibilities, and I was having a very hard time feeling like a good wife or a good mom. And so my husband and I would argue, and these arguments would immediately escalate to very high levels of emotion. And I remember one night climbing into bed with my husband and finally getting really, really vulnerable. I remember sharing with him that my biggest fear was that someday he was going to look at me and think, this woman is an absolute mess, and that he would decide that he was ready to move on and that he would leave. This is the pattern I had seen in my own family multiple times, that eventually men would just leave. And so I finally shared with my husband this huge fear and this tender emotion. And I remember him looking over at me and saying, I'm not going anywhere. And oftentimes in disagreements that we would have after that, he understood that fear and that tender emotion. And he would reassure me by saying, I'm not going anywhere. We may not be agreeing right now, or we might be in this huge fight, but I'm not going anywhere. And that always calmed me enough to be rational and logical and be able to sort through my emotions, which we're going to talk about in the next lesson. But if we can pinpoint our partner's vulnerable emotions and help to reassure them that they matter to us, then oftentimes those wounds and triggers will start to have less power over us and over our interactions. Now, the fifth and final step is to make a plan as a team. Now, don't fear, I'm going to give you lots of ways to calm yourself down so you can actually share these vulnerable feelings with each other. And the final step is to make a plan as a team. So once you've connected and shared those vulnerable feelings with each other, then you can work through the details of the argument and create a plan for facing your challenges and conflicts together as a team. This is how you will break those negative feedback loops of your interactions, change the music, and create a beautiful, more harmonious dance together. Now, don't fear. I'm going to give you lots of ways to calm yourself down so you can actually share these vulnerable emotions with each other and reconnect in the next lesson and the next module. But for now, just remember that we can heal even the deepest vulnerabilities and wounds with the help of a loving spouse. Now, I know I give you lots of assignments of things to watch. In addition to a season of Dancing with the Stars, I want you to watch the clip of the iconic dance scene of Beauty and the Beast that I've linked below this video. Now, as you are watching the scene of this movie, I want you to tune into the lyrics of the song that they're dancing with, keeping in mind that Beauty and the Beast is such a great representation of what we're talking about here. Now, if you think about Belle and the Beast, Belle growing up in very humble circumstances, being raised by a single father in a small town, and the Beast being raised as a prince in this amazing castle with all kinds of servants working for him, right? They have very different backgrounds, and clearly the Beast has lots of wounds that are very visible. And Belle comes in with her own wounds, right? And the entire movie, they're learning how to interact with each other. And in this iconic dance, you can see how they're starting to heal those wounds within the relationship that is forming between them. I love the depiction and the metaphor presented in Beauty and the Beast of the ability to heal all of these wounds within the bounds of a loving, trusting, safe relationship, which is exactly what the two of you have the potential to do. And in the next lesson, we're going to talk about, once we've started to recognize those negative patterns of interaction and we've broken the negative feedback loops that they create, how we can now begin to choreograph this beautiful new dance. So when you're ready, I'll meet you in the next lesson.